environment for talent, we don't have the right environment for companies, we don't have the right environment for product development. And the idea that we will solve all of these issues and then generate new growth at the rate at which we need to generate to hit these targets seems not rooted in fact.
Got it. So I think in summary, so what we're saying is GCC, yeah, there is opportunity, but whether it will contribute to the level that we want is a question in the short period of time. I think my back of the envelope calculation was 25 new GCCs, and the current in combination, if we can grow 25 to be like 1,000 man operations, that will give like $1 billion. That will be a good place, but yeah, plus minus. Talent mobility policy, I think that's something that we definitely need to look at. How do we make Sri Lanka an attractive place for talented engineers to stay? For sure, yeah. Who's next? Talent.
Yeah, okay. So I think we too had a very encouraging sessions with all 4 tables taking part, giving both perspective of the industry as well as the academia. Fact that there's a gap in what is it was accepted and admitted, but before coming to that, the positive sides of that, there was also concern about, from my side, also agree with Bhanuka, how these numbers were arrived and whether these are actually based on any standard methodology. So are we able to justify these numbers by using standard research techniques? So that was one of the comment, because there were academics involved in our group. So that's one thing that we raised a concern. But however, the positives are that most of the recommendations are sounded to be positive, especially the National Skills Survey. And it was agreed that the National Skills Survey has to be more sort of dynamic. And I think earlier we discussed that it will be every 2 years, but it needed to have a more, continuous transformation of information, because there's always the academics. I see there was argument about, the perception gap. I mean, sometimes academic believe that the students have the right skills, but that is not what the skills, what the industry really expects. I think this skills survey would help. There was also some, in terms of the other important areas that was highlighted, then also the other thing is that the incentives for retaining top talent was also recognized, and that is an important thing, because we are losing the top talent. How do you do that? That was well accepted. Then, not having national level mechanisms for integrating industry and academia, that's one of the major thing. So this professional skills development framework, or training people for very identified needs. So I think we need to, what was stressed to us, like we don't want to just, upskilling and reskilling to be done without any focus. We want to really find out what is the area that we need to, are we going to focus on, AI deep engineering, or are we going to apply AI in cross domains and go into product engineering? So therefore we need to really identify, that was what was discussed, identify the areas to focus, and let's focus on developing the gaps in that. One of the gaps that was mostly highlighted was like, the not giving identification to the capability of the trainers, right? How are we going to empower the trainers in the academic sector? And also the pipeline that we should get, development that we should get in the secondary education up to K-12. So that was also not actually addressing this part. Probably that is part of education reforms, maybe out of the scope of this project. But it was also some important thing that was mentioned. And finally, I think the emphasis on research, right? If you really want to do great stuff, come up with something breakthrough, we need to have more national agenda on research, which is not really happening in our education system. So I think that is also was, maybe these are more to go into the education transformation, but however, I think it was valid points. And the other most important thing is like the lack of integration of different domains in our existing academic setup was other problem that was highlighted, which we can do with the existing structure itself. Now we have so many universities with multidisciplinary learning and teaching. But only thing is there's very little integration that happens in the existing system so that we can really apply AI on different domains. So that was also highlighted in that one. So I think, so this is a good start. That was the final comment, good start. But we have a long way to go. I think there are certain refinements. So if you take all of these inputs, I think we can come to a good blueprint where we can take it through. Thank you.
Thanks, Doctor. So I think in terms of the numbers, the only number fixed is the 5 billion. Everything else is a variable. So we can have multiple permutations in terms of how we get there. I think the industry academic, that collaboration and having a structured model, I think that's something that we need to kind of work on. I think some of the other topics will need to engage education, I guess, the ministry themselves, and other sources of, I think, influx into the industry from the vocational streams that, I mean, we need graduates who understand the basics, the foundation, but we also need like the technician type mindsets. I think US produces these developers on boot camps and all that, so we may need to test some of that as well. I think at one point in the past, I think we started doing that because we didn't have enough engineers at that time, and we had conversion programs to take graduates from different disciplines and train them on IT. All right. Who's next? Hemant, do you want to go?
Yeah. So I kind of moderated the startups and freelancers group. So I think overall what the idea came was now if you are going for a 5 billion, we need to have a larger portion coming from products. So it has to be products, like we have to build more WSO2s and more products that are coming out. And then how to do it, whether it's covered very well in the strategy, there was a question mark. And then also you can't have the same model that is given for SME for a startup also. There's a differentiation, massive differentiation that need to be looked after. And also, also came up the thing now, it's not about Sri Lankan startups per se. We should be able to, not Sri Lankan companies per se, we should be able to bring more companies from outside. And that trade liberalization has to happen for more companies to come and establish here. And that's how we can build that whole 5 billion idea. And then whether it's covered, that particular part. And then I think if you look at the life cycle, there are a lot of issues related to very early stage, how to cover the IP, grant mechanism for startups, early stage startups, and what are the grant mechanisms available, whether it's operational. Somebody said that there are grants, but you don't know when it is coming. Like you apply today, it comes in like 1.5 years later. So those are the issues that they said. And then next level, the funding issues, obviously. What are the angel funding? Then of course, later on at the scale up level, what are the funding models available? All that is there. It's a big question mark. Then on the one of the key things that came up with was we need a government-backed accelerator. To take startups from whatever the level, scale up level to 10 next level or whatever that you call it. And then from the freelancer side, there were issues specifically on, we need intermediary cost to be reduced. So an organization like Stripe is what they mentioned specifically, need to be there as operator in Sri Lanka, and then that intermediary cost has to be reduced. And then
It's like the transaction cost.
Transaction cost, yeah. And then also things came up like, opening a bank account. There are a lot of delays. Opening company, there are delays. Shutting down a company, you can never do it in Sri Lanka. So those are the things. Because startups, you start 100, you have to close down 90. And that's a global thing. So, but in Sri Lanka, it's very difficult to close a company, especially when there's a dispute. So, so those are the things. And then, so the whole, there are so many other things overlying the document, so these are very highlights.
Right. I think the National Accelerator, I think, is planned. I think we can get together and do that TUR, publish it, and we have allocated funds for that. Startup support, I think that's something that we'll need to get together and define. I mean, what support means, how do we give a grant, how do we hold people accountable as well, because ultimately it's public money. So I think we can use some help and feedback in terms of how to execute something like that.
Two things came. One is you need to have a list of startups, government-backed list of startups. Number two, there should be a government entity or it can be government, it can be private, but entity is responsible for startups.
Right.
So that person or organization should focus on that.
Right.
So it's not that SMEs or some industry entrepreneurship. No, this is for startups.
Yeah. So under GovTech, I mean, we have placed the industry development, that team. But apart from the team, there will be a secretariat. That service will be, I think, on a procurement model. So they will operate the next edition of what was Startup SL. We want to kind of broad base that platform, and secretariat will be like a service organization. I mean, whether like an overseas startup wants to do something here, they want to register a company here, our startups want to make use of any grant program or any support program. So there'll be a single secretariat driving that. So, okay, so that's a good feedback. And the policy?
Yeah, so Shantima, my moderation was with the team that looked at the policy, infrastructure and investment piece. Solid debate. Sorry, we had to stop halfway. On the act, everybody gave solid endorsement, but the discussions that went was showing that there was lack of clarity between how the act will support some of the issues that people are finding with regard to even the infrastructure, even some of the things you were speaking, which came talent, because a lot of work has been done on the act, the strategy, and the structure. So it looks like there's a gap that requires more engagement to give clarity on how all of this finally lands into some of your key deliverables. So I'm sure you've done a lot of stakeholder engagement, but that seems to be something that required more intervention. Then on the multi-year policy stability, the usual skepticism again came on, will that be there? Can we count on these policies to last for 10 years when you're looking at investment, your tax pass-through? So again, what we felt was the clarity is there, everybody is for it, more of that, but the confidence level is what we are all struggling with internally with the stakeholders. So I think more engagement of this nature is what would give the stakeholders more confidence to take their decisions. Then on we discussed on areas such as the data exchange, which everybody understood, everybody agreed, strongly endorsed. I think it's all about supporting that initiative and how everybody could benefit from it. With regard to the sustainable digital destination, country as a brand, a destination as a brand, there was concerns about even carbon credit initiatives, the lack of transparency, individual companies are benefiting from it, there's no overall government role in it. We also talked about how Maldives has got brands like Google to invest in data centers. We haven't got a branded dollar in, like a Shangri-La coming or the hospitality. Nothing's come since then that is of that stature, right? So what would we do to bring brand up to a level that we can bring the type of investment, and that of course builds the credibility of the brand. So there was again good positive views on the potential to do that. And with regard to removing regulatory barriers, funds of funds, the groups are discussing on it. I think there's more work to be done to decode it to the stakeholders for them to actually contribute. And to be clear, what do they really want out of it? Looks like few are fully engaged, but there's a big gap in the in the overall stakeholder group. With regard to the bigger ones, such as the your satellite cable and satellite redundancy, There were one or two good debates on that. Again, can Sri Lanka play a role? Should we bet on these issues? Because sometimes we get hung on some macro big projects, but I think we were trying to point the finger, what is the role of the industry? While you look at the government's role, I think you all have done a lot which needs decoding. And we keep on asking, what can the government do more? But I think for you to get the industry to align to what can we now do with what we have requires further deeper engagements of this nature. But overall, we had a very good, healthy debate. I wish you can get into smaller groups and drill it deeper, and you'll have more engagement. So overall, positive.
All right, thanks. I think that's a conversation that needs to go on, and I think the policy part, we need to get it right and create that right environment. I think with that, we'll close this session. Thanks everyone for volunteering. I know this is not a simple job. Straight to the deep end. Really appreciate what you all did. Thank you.
Indeed, a very big thank you goes out to our moderators, and we kindly request our moderators to please remain on stage. And in order to present a quick token of appreciation to our four moderators, we'd like to invite Honorable Deputy Minister of Digital Economy, Engineer Rangaveer Ratna, to please come on stage. And to accept the first token of appreciation, we invite Mr. Yasas Hevage to please come forward. And the next token will be accepted by Dr. Dayan Rajapaksha. And next up, we invite Mr. Hemendra Jayavira to please come forward. And the final token of appreciation will be presented to Mr. Banga Harishchandra. Once again, a very big thank you goes out to our moderators for guiding that brilliant conversation. Thank you very much, gentlemen. You may return to your seats. And thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Minister, for doing the honors. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're Well, ladies and gentlemen, with that, we will now open the forum for the Q&A session. You have already submitted your questions, and we will have our panel shortly coming on stage to provide you with the answers. Now, in the interest of time, and also to ensure that we will have a focused discussion, the questions received have been randomly selected and will be addressed by our speakers. And also, all of your questions will shortly appear on screen, and you can also vote for the most preferred questions, and the top most voted questions will be taken in for discussion. And also, our online participants will also be joining this forum shortly. And with that, we now would like to cordially invite the following dignitaries to please come on stage to provide their valuable insights in response to the queries raised. We invite Mr. Abhishek Dubey, the Director, KPMG Singapore, And also we'd like to invite the SLASCOM chairman, Mr. Sampar Jayasundara, and also we invite the FITIS chairman, Dr. Dayan Rajapaksha, along with our moderator who will be facilitating this conversation, Mr. Chantimakure, board member of GovTech Sri Lanka. Well, in the absence of Mr. Jayasundara, we'd like to invite a representative from SLASCOM to please come. Oh, I think we do have Mr. Jayasundara with us. Yes, we do.
All right, I think we have got about 100 questions. So no lunch. Okay, the people who are actually meant to answer these questions are not here. So we'll have to manage this. So there's voting on these questions, and so I'm going to pick the ones with highest votings. So one thing is around internships and entry-level jobs in the ICT field. Graduates face a major bottleneck. Because of that, they're thinking of startups. But then they would like to get some mentorships as well. Sampath, would you like to take that? I know you have some programs as well. Can you get a couple of
Yes, we all understand there's a real problem in internships at the moment. So there are multiple solutions for this problem. SLASCOM, a few months back, we launched an online internship platform. So there are companies already onboarded to this platform. So company point of view, there are 3 layers. Company point of view, they are assigning a supervisor and a project in the virtual platform. Then university point of view, we have onboarded set of universities as well at the moment. So universities, people who are seeking for online internships can onboard students. Students can apply for these projects. So company will evaluate these students and onboard set of students or individual student for a particular project. And the supervisor can guide them throughout a period. Company can issue the letter required by the university. So we are not expecting the physical internship model to replace, but in top of that, to accommodate more interns in the virtual mode. So that is already available. We encourage to spread that message and get more people to register for this online internship platform. And we expect all the companies also to come up with their projects and load it to this platform. Then you can create more opportunities. That is one. Second thing is, even the previous discussion we discussed about, let's say, connecting the IT sector with non-IT sector, the agri to fisheries to manufacturing to whatever other sectors. So today, rather than looking for an internship within the IT industry, so you can get into other organization and you can get into a bank and do a fintech project. And I would say rather than get into some of the IT companies and getting into a maintenance job, if you get into a manufacturing company, into supply chain area and do a research project, so one day you can even form a company with your IT skill set. So we have to think differently today, because if you look at IT, number of IT companies are limited. How many people we can accommodate is limited. Right now we are talking about 15 to 17,000 graduates are passing out. Out of that, maybe 50% graduates are expecting an internship. So IT industry point of view, we may not be in a position to provide that the entire lot. So these are the 2 methods to solve this problem. I would say we have to spread the message and encourage university level to getting into both the channels.
Thanks, Sampath. I think it'll be good for universities also to reach out to non-IT companies as well, because I think today, like, all businesses are software businesses. I mean, that's how we say, right? So I think even the banks to all the different businesses will seek more and more IT resources. So I think maybe that's opportunity to look at. The most voted question, obviously, is about the tax brackets, how it affects the tech professionals across career tiers at top product hubs, IFSA, WSO2, Cisco Labs, Virtusa. What targeted policy interventions or retention mechanisms are planned to prevent talent migration and safeguard the workforce needed to reach the 5 billion? So far we have no plans. I mean, we have no, I know like government has a view of reducing this, but we have not made any specific proposals for IT professionals. So if someone has a view, I would like to hear it from the panel.
No, I think, Chandima, like, now since FITIS look at the overall cross-section of the industry, I mean, we have also, you know, consulted government with regard to the tax matters and so on. We understand there are certain constraints for the government as well. You know, we can't give a separate, you know, benefit. Actually, already government highlights that what is being charged as 15% is the norm. It is a lower rate. But our, you know, stakeholders' main concern is, you know, even if these tax reductions are impossible, but there's a lot of, you know, gray market in some of the things that are happening, which I think easily can be fixed, because that doesn't give a fair play to one which is really operating with that appropriate transparency and so on. So I think that can be something that you can immediately fix, so that, you know, all the stakeholders, which is something that with all these, you know, digital government and all that is not something which you cannot realize. So that is what my stance of view, because rather than, I mean, of course, it can be given, strategically we have to see a trade-off, right? Okay, giving a benefit, can we get that? That is, of course, you know, it's not beyond our thing, which has to be looked at from a top point of view. But I think fixing the imbalance with this unfair practices, grey markets and all, need to be sorted out.
No, definitely.
Just at one point, maybe we can look at, not to reduce, but to enable some of these allowances. Now we are talking about these global certification and stuff like that, and even the loan schemes and whatever. Like if they can look at how to enable some of these allowances at least, so that will definitely benefit. Especially we are talking about talent development, so this can definitely, like, you know, help talent development angle as well.
Yeah, I think I also agree that it's a problem to be solved. I think maybe companies that are Sri Lanka, BCS with large pools of membership, maybe it'll be good to come up with a proposal on a value proposition of retaining membership in Sri Lanka, and then we can
exactly.
Yeah. All right. Next question is AI politics all in one. To reach 5 billion target, our ICT sector must build on frontier AI, but US policies increasingly tie high-end compute access to geopolitical alignments. In Sri Lanka is neutral. We face structural barriers. How will we secure the multi-stack compute access needed to win global enterprise contracts? Do you have a view on this?
I think we are worrying too much about models. And if you have seen and heard recently, NVIDIA is also talking about open source model. So I think soon models will become commodities as more and more countries and universities will introduce more models. It is all about what you do with these models, and there is an always open source way to go with. So there are open source models which are also available. How you access them, how you customize them, how you train them, and how you put to use will be the differentiator. So I think it's just a matter of few years, the way we see. Even if you see some of these big tech companies, they are giving multiple options within their technology stacks to use different models. Because we know one model is not good enough. one model is good for, like recently I heard, the number of tokens a particular model consumes to read a document versus a Chinese model or some other model, it can do it at a fraction of that. So now, why company will pay you a premium just to upload a document and you just want to probe that document? There are simpler models which are available. So this evolution is bound to happen because everybody is looking for that market space where they can make a difference. So don't worry much about model. That would be my submission.
Sure. Next question is about, will there be tax incentives for startup founders, investors, including R&D credits, angel investment relief, and incentives for export-focused technology companies? So let's break it down. I think incentives for export-focused technology companies, I think anyway there is a lower tax bracket for such companies. In terms of tax incentives, I think the fundamental problem that we are trying to solve is for the investors. When you set up a fund here, all this time actually the fund itself gets taxed, and then when the return comes to the hands of the investors, you get taxed again. So we want to avoid that cascading of taxes and make the fund itself a tax pass-through structure. I mean, that's what India has done as well. So that's in the works. There's a cabinet paper ready to go, and I think we are clear on what needs to change to facilitate that, and the stakeholders are aligned around that. So that can be done. I think tax incentives for startup is not where startups generally will not make profit to be subjected to tax. So we just need to make sure like the investors have a conducive environment to operate and invest in Sri Lankan startups, and those are the kind of the key issues we are trying to solve right now. Connected with that, founders keep setting up in Singapore, Dubai, because holding USD and receiving foreign payment here is hard. Does the roadmap include lobbying for CBSL reforms in short term to fix this for tech companies? Yeah, I think we are kind of aligned in thoughts. There are challenges in terms of completely liberalizing or having something very, very special. I think the approach we are taking, I mean, this is what Dr. Hans talked about, the HQ Sri Lanka strategy. So we want startups, product companies who are born out of Sri Lanka to be retained in Sri Lanka as much as we can, as long as we can. But eventually they may go to Silicon Valley or whatever at a certain point to go public, but at least up to that time and not as early as they move out now. So I think two fundamental problems. One is actually the access to capital. So that's why we are keen on the fund of funds to come, the VC regulatory environment to be sorted so that there's funding available here. So our target is to make $100 million available for Sri Lankan startups within the next couple of years. Receiving foreign payments here is hard. I think those things we can sort. Central bank is supportive and finance ministry is also supportive. I think whatever the proposal we make, I think we need to make sure like we look at the possible misuse and show how we are going to safeguard. I think that's what they want to kind of hear, because it's very easy to, when we have some concession to someone to create a company, call it IT company and do all sorts of things. So we are taking certain responsibilities as Minister of Digital Economy, GovTech, and in the future, Digital Economic Authority, who will do certain level of validation to say, yes, this is a VC investing in Sri Lankan startups, or to say, yes, this particular startup is recognized and we know that it's tested. They're actually building a product or a service or whatever. So with that validation, these concessions can be sought. And the other concession for startups is actually the capital mobility. So you receive $1 million right now. You have a $200,000 limit that you can take out. That also is not a straightforward matter. So we're going to smoothen that, hopefully with BOI. How are we going to achieve these targets if entrepreneurs cannot even get a company registered in Sri Lanka? 8 weeks since I submitted my incorporation documents and still waiting for approval. Is that a problem?
Approval.
Company registration.
Now there had been I don't think the straightforward cases are there, but if you are going to form a company in certain areas, there are approval process. For example, let's say if you want to form a company for venture capital, right? There are regulated clearances that are there. Now, for example, I think that is what is being talked about. Now, for example, you can't form because there are line ministries and so on. You may need to get a clearance from so on. So, that is where the approval process is. Otherwise, straightforward company formation, I don't think there is an issue.
Yeah. Could we first update all government websites to support online payments and digital application forms for documents like birth certificates, etc., making the process much easier for expatriates who frequently visit Sri Lanka? Absolutely. I think this is part of GovTech's main mandate on how we digitize most of these processes. So centered around the digital ID, there's this concept of verifiable credentials. I mean, this is commonly available in India now. They don't have to even carry a driving license. It's all on the mobile. And so verifiable credentials and through the data exchange, this can be facilitated. This is in already planned. Does GovTech or MODE plan to lobby the Sri Lankan government for a digital, business-friendly, tech startup-centric business registration and support framework, revive Startup LK, or introduce new formal legislation like Startup Act in Italy that consolidates registration and incentives? Definitely, I mean, startups are an area that we are working a lot. I have not studied the act in Italy. Anyone familiar? We have not looked at Italy as a... So they're saying there's a Startup Act in Italy. Maybe we can take a look at that. I have not seen that. Startup LK, I think we will take it forward. We will broad base its use to be kind of the hub for the entire tech industry. And there'll be a secretariat, meaning there'll be like a team in charge of that, as well as to service any requests coming from that. So any kind of program that GovTech or the government is running, that will get published, and the service requests for any of those programs will get serviced through that secretariat so that it will be properly done. And there are lots of visa request validations that need to be handled as well. So all of that will be done by that team. Why are we not collaborating with Fortune 500 companies and bring their branches to Sri Lanka? Example, Google, YouTube, etc. Sampath, is this something that we have tried in the past?
So this is very challenging, like, when you look at the overall environment. But we look at India +1 strategy targeting Indian giants. So we build a relationship, SLASCOM and ESCOM, and invite them to, in fact, we had few forums in Sri Lanka last December. We had the ESCOM Leadership Summit also in Colombo, first week of December. So when we build a relationship, and there's a probability they will look at Sri Lanka as an alternate destination to set up some of these Indian giants, alternate destination Sri Lanka. I think that's what everyone should target. If you really look at not just one association, but everyone should target attracting some of these Fortune 500 companies to set up their entities. But I think we have to create that supportive infrastructure, like government-led environment. We have to look at overall structure, overall strategy if we are going to invite them. Otherwise, just because we invite, nobody will come. We have to create the structure and the environment to invite them.
Yeah, definitely we need these companies to come. And I think part of the virtual SEC also is about making it easy for someone to enter even in a smaller scale and then scale up. Okay, there's a comment on Sri Lankan universities are lagging behind in many aspects, despite their crucial role in developing the country's digital economy. What initiatives does the government plan to implement to modernize the university system, improve its efficiency, strengthen its workforce to meet the digital goals? I don't have an answer, but I would like some comments from maybe Dr. Dan on the views and the feedback you have received from the industry.
Yeah, I think, of course, the FITIS also has an education chapter, and some of the non-state universities are part of our education chapter. But I don't agree 100% with that, statement. Our university system is fairly good, both public as well as the private. There are areas for improvements. However, I think one of the the biggest challenge that we have is that we don't have data about the demand. So when we don't have data about the demand, the supply can't be fine-tuned to what it should be. So that is the biggest problem. And also we have a little bit of issue with regard to agility we have in terms of curriculum updates and curriculum changes. But once we start with that, setting the benchmark with the data of the demand side of it, I think the regulatory authorities from Education Ministry also will align to bring that agility what is needed.
All right, thanks. I think, yeah. Yeah, so this demand and supply, I mean, that's another chicken and egg to crack. I think our view is like the supply needs to continue. You just get fine-tuned based on the inputs you get from the demand, but trying to match supply and demand will not help us get to the 5 billion. There will be times where demand exceeds because we have done maybe a great job in campaigning, or some big company coming here, there will be a stretch on the capacity side, and it can go other way. But I think the capacity, that supply side, I think should have its plan and just go for the numbers. For early stage startups trying to win foreign clients, credibility is often the biggest blocker before capabilities. Will there be a formal GovTech recognized accreditation for startups so a foreign buyer can? Yeah, so that's the idea of like the next version of Startup SL. How valid that will be is to be seen in the market, but I think some kind of accreditation will be there, more so for the VCs and the funding agencies. But I think for startups, there are other platforms like the Crunchbase and all those other platforms, and we will try to get them more involved and invite them to be part of events like the Disrupt Asia, so that more startups meet such organizations who actually profile startups, and that kind of profile goes international. So I think that's how we are thinking about it. Sri Lankan tech companies already deliver national scale digital programs across the region and in global markets. How will the government leverage this expertise to strengthen Sri Lanka's digital ecosystem while helping these firms win new markets and generate export revenue? Sampath, what would you say in terms of what would you want the government to do in this respect?
Yeah, I think more market access GTM level, initiative, because especially one area is a lot of leading companies, they have the right knowledge and expertise. One side, how to get these expertise. On the other side, helping the medium-sized and smaller companies or startups to fast-track their journey, because we don't want them to go through the same learning curve, how to fast-track some of these things. I think if government can allocate some funding for these market development initiatives, especially targeting some of the markets. If you really look at, there are markets in Southeast Asia as well, larger markets where Sri Lankan, especially product companies, can access. So we have to come up with a proper program to bring, let's say, bring startup to scale up level, scale up to the next level. Likewise, how to get into some of these overseas market and do these expansions. I think if both associations and GovTech work together, you should be able to come up with a proper program.
There's also a question on does GovTech and the IT industry of Sri Lanka have a running list of global tech problem statements, burning platforms of global private and public sectors as opportunity pipeline where we can prioritize how we play to innovate, build, modify, and monetize. The opportunity pipeline is vital, and I agree. And I think our answer to that actually is the national accelerator operated by a global player. So for example, if we get someone like Plug and Play to operate here, I mean, most of the Fortune 500 companies are their customers. I mean, they become like the innovation sourcing arm for a lot of Fortune 500 companies. So they publish their problem statements with these organizations, and that becomes available through their network. And teams from all over the world can pitch to see whether their solution gets accepted. So definitely that's an area that we are working on. While discussing infrastructure, could we explore creating a startup innovation hub similar to T-Hub in Hyderabad, Block 71 in Singapore, where startups can work, meet investors and experts, and access mentorship and support? This could potentially be developed through a public-private partnership. Yeah, I think we are making progress, nothing to do with the government. I think government is providing maybe a bit of land and buildings. And I think thanks to Trace and Hatch, this space is improving. I think there's a lot more room. And I think we have allocated some budget to create more, I wouldn't just say spaces, but more ecosystems, and to take such concepts beyond Colombo as well. Are we okay for time, or should we wrap up? Okay, there are lots more questions. Yeah, I think it's common questions now. Yeah, so maybe let's hear it from each panel member on your closing thoughts on the event as well, and the overall kind of plan in place, and how you want to be part of this.
I think most important is to work everyone together as a team, all the associations, then the university, academia, the GovTech and the government. If you all work together towards the plan, and each one will share some of the responsibilities. I think we need a master action plan with proper measurements and see how this is moving month on month, because we can't wait years. So if you have a proper monitoring mechanism, how these initiatives are moving month on month, we should be able to reach the goal. At the same time, we may have to do a lot of course correction on ongoing basis as well. I think what is very important is even last week we submit policy recommendation, SRASCOM point of view. I think those things also should move fast as possible, because there are some bottlenecks. We can't initiate certain other things without policy reforms and certain changes. But I think if everyone in this room work together, at the same time, maybe there can be 50 initiatives. If you can find, Chandima, 50 heads to lead these 50 initiatives and make sure that happens. So we are talking about achieving 50 initiatives over a period of time. And that baton can pass over a period of time, let's say after 12 months, we get another 50 to lead another set of initiatives, and let's move this needle fast as possible.
Thanks, Sampath.
Thank you. I think I endorse what Sampath said. So I think, the blueprints are good, but only thing is that we have had repeated, our past experience is that the execution is where we most of the time struggle. So I think, as previously also mentioned, that we need to keep this engagement continuously with all the stakeholders, especially when various initiatives, as you said, if you can have a good owner for each initiative is good. But also the other thing is that even, going into the final, TORs for each of these initiatives, we should have consultations, but then we can make sure that the real KPIs are being met. Thank you.
I think I just want to say three things. I think we have to move away from policy-based outcome to outcome-based policies. And for that, you need a very modern enterprise, people with niche skills to come and work with these government secretariats, and those people who have first-hand experience of understanding what it takes to deliver products or export something, and they will be able to address and answer most of these challenges. And most of these initiatives which we have heard, I'm sure we will come out with TORs likewise. So I think it is also important to take a very innovative approach to come co-create, do co-creation along with certain startups. And it can be as simple as redesigning a website. Why can't we just co-create that? And then possibly that will move the needle. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, so I think the plans that we presented are like, solid as in there's money allocated, there's a team now in place within GovTech, and we are strengthening that team further, both on the industry development and the capacity development side. But all of you are the real stakeholders of this, all of us. So we need to engage at the right time with the right and the best resources coming together to give input. I think the TUR development, is one of the most crucial activities, and I think we will publish that and with the advisory committee and everyone else, and we need solid teams working together to make sure that we define the TURs right, so that we can expect the right partners to come on board and for them to be held accountable for the right kind of the initiatives and the outcomes. So I think I want to thank everyone who worked tirelessly to organize. KPMG for tolerating us for many months and going through many iterations. I know we bring different set of people who have different opinions, different views, what to expect from this. But I think it has come to a point which is kind of actionable with some good insights. So thanks for that. And I think all of you for joining this entire morning. And I think World Bank, as always, for supporting and making this happen. Samir, so take the message to your team. Kasuni, I guess over to you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, a big hand for our panel. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you. You may return to your seats. And now, as we conclude today's The Road to 5 Billion Validation workshop on the IT assessment and strategic roadmap, once again, we'd like to extend our sincere appreciation to the Ministry of Digital Economy, GovTech Sri Lanka, the World Bank Group, KPMG, our distinguished speakers, our moderators, our rapporteurs, and to every participant here and also who joined us online for your valuable contributions. Now, also, ladies and gentlemen, your insights today indeed will play an important role in refining the strategic roadmap that we have set for Sri Lanka's journey towards achieving this $5 billion target. And the consolidated report on the assessment of Sri Lanka's IT industry and the strategic roadmap, incorporating your insights and the recommendations emerging from today's discussions, reflecting the collective perspective of all the stakeholders, will be shared with you via email in the near future. And now, may we kindly request all of our participants to scan the QR code that will be appearing on screen shortly, as we would love to hear your feedback on today's workshop. So please, if you can all take your mobile phones out and take a quick minute in scanning the QR code and letting us know your feedback on the entire workshop which took place today, as your insights indeed will help us in further enhancing and improving our future engagements. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, as we wrap up the formal proceedings of this afternoon, before you leave, may we kindly also remind all of you who have parked their vehicles to please collect your car park validation token from the bowl that has been placed on the registration desk right outside the ballroom. And with that, we cordially invite all of you now to please do join us for networking lunch. Thank you very much, and we hope you all have a fantastic day ahead. Thank you.